Tee time for the first round of the RBC Heritage is Thursday morning, and we'll find out which of the top players competing could have a Masters hangover, and which players who didn't attend the Masters can try and take advantage of their week off. We'll try to answer those questions and more as we preview the season's first event following a major with in-depth player analysis, course knowledge, the latest odds, trends, and picks as Prime Sports Golf on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, you're listening to Prime Sports Golf for this Tuesday, the 10th of April, 2018, with Jeff Shane, Brady Cannon, and Joel Cook on the Prime Sports Radio Network. Prime Sports Golf is brought to you by ProGolfWeekly.com and Covers.com. Make sure to visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com. You can get 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. Time to introduce my co-host to the show. He's a PGAtour.com contributor. You can find his first look reports every Friday prior to each event on the PGA Tour. And he's coming to us live from Harbor Town in Hilton Head, South Carolina, Jeff Shane. So, Jeff, how's the golf course looking?
Wet. We've had 2 days of rain here, and so it's going to be a little slow in the fairways. But one of the things is that Harbor Town is one of the better conditioned golf courses out there. They all are, but the people at Sea Pines have put an extra effort in these last few years to really upgrade that process, and we'll get over it. It's supposed to be sunshine the rest of the week.
All right. That's all that matters. Nobody cares about you getting wet, Jeff, on Monday,
I
Tuesday,
know
or
that.
Wednesday. Yeah. All right. Also, joining us and welcoming back Covers.com golf handicapper Brady Cannon to the show. And Brady, we have an interesting event. Anytime you follow a major, especially the Masters, because it's the first one, it's the most talked about. It can be a difficult event to handicap for that purpose, but I will say that to me, I guess you tell me, but I think the most interesting handicapping trend of the week has got to be playing the final round wagering, considering that 5 straight winners of this event have come from 3 shots down or more to win. So that means you're going to get some pretty good action out there for players that are 3 shots or more going into the final round. Maybe that's the play this week.
You know, that's a great comment. And it's just another thing that is basically a polar opposite of what Augusta National gives us. The golf course, Augusta has huge greens, and they're bent grass, and they're undulated, and you have the roll-off areas. And here at Harbor Town, you have some of the tour's smallest greens, Bermuda grass. The course is about a full golf hole shorter, almost a par 5 shorter than Augusta. The fairways are narrower. There's really a premium on driving accuracy here, where there really is no premium on driving accuracy whatsoever at Augusta. So it's just like a total switch from everything last week. This week is a whole new ball game. And you mentioned, the volatility in the final round. 80% of the time, the winner at the Masters comes from the final pairing, and it did again last year.
Yeah.
So, we almost saw Spieth make a charge and come from behind.
Sure.
But for the most part, that doesn't take place at Augusta. And like you say, it does oftentimes here at Harbor Town.
Yeah, you would think that. What does a comeback guy got to do with the Masters to try to win that thing? It just shows you how hard it is to do it there. Before we do get into this event this week, Brady, just get back to the Masters just a second. Was there any specific play, with Patrick Reed winning, or any matchups, anything that you could take from last week that was interesting?
Well, it was really tough for me. I had a awful week at the end of the week, just as far as, the won and loss record. But everything I did was close, and then eventually didn't make it to the finish line. I had Matt Kuchar, who started out great. I had Mark Leishman, who was good going all the way into the weekend. I had Adam Scott, who looked like he was going to trend towards the top 20 finish, and that didn't happen. I had 9 guys. I had future plays on 9 guys, and they all made the cut, and not one of them came through. So, I did a lot of things well, but not good enough.
All right. So as we go inside Harbor Town, you gave the differences between Augusta and this golf course. So and I've looked at the past champions of the course, and by the way, there's going to be a couple of former champs that won't be here, and matter of fact, the Brendan Grace isn't even here, right? I didn't know.
Yeah, he's not, and that really surprised me because he's been on quite a run here at Harbor Town. He's done very well there the last few years.
Yeah, so he's not here, and you've also got some of the former champs who may not be on top of their game. A lot of the older players, Jim Furyk, Davis Love, and such. So it's just when I look at guys that play here, and as you said, it's not for the sexy golfers, it's not for the power hitters. So we're going to get a lot of those like nondescript. Really, an average golfer, I would say, or not an average, golfer on tour, but somebody that just makes sure that he is very straight off the tee. And again, he may not be one of the top 10 or 20 players in the world, but he's going to be a solid golfer. And he might even be a young kid like Wes Bryant. That's another thing that we've got to talk about is that we don't really see any evidence that you have to necessarily have a lot of great experience on this golf course of playing well, or like Brian, never playing at all.
Well, there are a lot of horses for courses here, though, and you talk about Jim Furyk and Davis Love. Obviously, they've had tremendous success here. And one thing that contributes to that, that's one thing that is similar to Augusta, is, course form and the horses for courses theory. Because they've played this same course since 1969, now in the 50th year anniversary of playing at Harbor Town. So, you do get guys that tend to fit this description this week and find themselves on the leaderboard year after year. Matt Kuchar, Luke Donald, and Brandon Grace as of late, William McGirt. So there are some guys that are certainly horses for this course, like there were last week at Augusta as well. So that is one similarity. But you're right. It does lack a lot of star power, and really Dustin Johnson is probably only here this week because of his association with the tournament sponsor. So it is a bit of a letdown in terms of star power, but on the other hand, it is one of the most beloved courses and tour stop that the guys make all year as well. Just a gorgeous area, and certainly one of the most beautiful golf courses that they play on the calendar.
All right, give me a head-to-head pick, as we often ask you, that you have noticed that is very interesting to you.
Well, I saw one here locally in Las Vegas at the Westgate, which is certainly the leader in our marketplace for golf betting. Jeff Sherman over there does a tremendous job. And he's got to match up Zach Johnson against Ryan Moore. And Zach Johnson is a slight favorite here at -120. And I agree with Jeff there. I thought Zach played a pretty solid Masters, and he's had a really good year so far. He did not crack the top 20, I believe, at Augusta, but did have a pretty good round going on Sunday and had a pretty respectable tournament. Ryan Moore, on the other hand, was disappointing to me. If you saw Ryan Moore at all, he got out every day where he was 2 or 3 under after the first 3 holes, and then he just continued to slip back further and further each day. So he would get out to a good start and then just throw it all back. And, he ended up finishing around even par or something like that for the entire tournament, maybe +2. But, he would show promise and then just not be able to finish the job. So I like the current form for Zach Johnson over Ryan Moore. And I also like the experience he has at this tournament versus Moore. Moore hasn't been here in a long, long time. And I think Zach is able to flourish with what you need to do this week. And that's going to be driving it straight, hitting greens in regulation, scrambling, and putting.
Yeah, Zach has 12 visits here. He's got a runner-up in 2012. Moore hasn't been here since 2008, and he's only played here twice without a top 10. Okay, give me a contender that you like this week, and obviously let us know what the odds are.
Well, Greg, I really like the contenders a lot better this week than I do the favorites.
Yep.
At the top of the board, you've got Dustin Johnson, Paul Casey, and Matt Kuchar, and we know Kuchar has a great history here, but he really fell off for me. This was a guy that I was backing at Augusta, and he's one shot out of the lead on Thursday, and I was feeling pretty good. And then he just continued to slip further and further down the leaderboard. And Johnson, as we mentioned, I don't know if he's really here to win this thing this week. Maybe just more of a commitment that he needs to make.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Casey has not played here in a long time. And again, I don't know if this is the perfect setup for him either, and all the energy he exhausted last week at Augusta as well. So I think it's really these guys in the 20 to 30 to 40 to 1 neighborhood who you want to keep your eye on this week. And a couple of them that I like are Kevin Kistner and Webb Simpson. Both of these gentlemen, and you talked about it at the Open, Greg, how do you deal with the Masters hangover? And in the case of Simpson and Kistner, they both finished up really well. Simpson flirted with a course record 63 on Sunday at Augusta. So I think he comes in with a lot of momentum, feeling pretty good about his game. And he's done well at this course in the past and done well at similar courses to Harbour Town. And Kistner is the same way, has done well at courses that would indicate success here at Hilton Head, and also had his best Masters finish ever. So, and Kistner, as you know, has been playing very well for a few weeks now with an advance all the way to the semifinals in the match play a few weeks ago. So I think both of these guys come in feeling pretty good about their game with a lot of momentum and should do well here this week.
Yeah, both of them have finished in the runner-up at this event. Simpson in 2013 and Kisner a few years ago when he shot 18 on the par in a runner-up in that event. Yeah, Simpson's one of my top plays this week as well. I really like how he's coming in after that solid finish on Sunday. They both have the look of a RBC champion. Okay, give me a pick of a long shot pick. By the way, Simpson's 25 to 1 in that range, and Kisner's about 33 to 1 in that range. Give me a long shot pick.
Yeah, a couple of guys that have had very good history here are Jason Kokrak and William McGirt, and I'm seeing Kokrak in the neighborhood of 60 to 80, and McGirt similar 60 to 70 to 1. McGirt has, I believe, 3 top 10 finishes in the last 4 years, and Kokrak has a couple of top 10s, I believe, in the last 5 years. He did miss the cut here last year, but he's got a good ball striker game. Even though you might consider him a bomber, he does hit the ball a long way. He really is able to manipulate the golf ball a lot, and we've seen that translate into success he's had at Riviera. And then William McGirt, certainly one of the best ball strikers on tour, and he's scrambling pretty well these days as well, and that's going to be key at this golf course. And he, like I said, has finished very well here in the past, so he's really establishing himself as a horse for this course. So a couple of guys that you can get a pretty good price on that I think ought to fare pretty well again this week.
Yeah, Kokrak 3 top 20s in his last 4 trips to Harbour Town. All right, Brady. So what's the next big thing you're waiting for as far as golf is concerned? Of course, the next major isn't until the U.S. Open. You got a couple more months for that, but you got another event that's next on your list that you're waiting for?
Well, I really like this event here. I think the handicap is a little bit easier. There's some more indicators I think that you can lean on, and the field is maybe a little bit thinner. So coming off of what was not a successful Masters for me, I'm hoping I can have some success here. And then, of course, you've got the Players' Championship, and I really love the Memorial as well, a couple of the bigger tournaments before we get to our next majors. So that's really what I'm looking at right now, guys.
Hey, it's going to be a lot of fun, and let's hope everybody stays healthy. This could be a great year, and it's just getting underway. Brady, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Have fun.
Thanks, Brady. All right, that's Brady Cannon from Covers.com. And once again, you're going to get 50% off any purchase at Covers.com. Go to experts.covers.com. That's right, 50% off any purchase. But you got to use the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. All right, so Dustin Johnson, by the way, is the favorite, 8 to 1. Paul Casey sitting there at 12 to 1. And then you have Matt Kuchar at 16 to 1. And then you have a pretty big drop-off to Webb Simpson and the rest starting at 25 to 1. So you do have – so those are your top 3 players here, Johnson, Casey, and Kuchar. And then the top two, Jeff, DJ, I mean, he's played here twice. I know he was a completely different player, of course, as far as the stature of his game when he played here in 2008 and 2009. But we do have to keep in mind two things. One, he was 21 over par combined in both events. And number two, this is not the type of golf course that suits his game.
No, it really isn't. And, it's one of those things where, for those that are in the area, it is South Carolina's tournament. Dustin Johnson grew up 2 hours from here in Columbia, or just outside Columbia, and so you'd love to see him play his home tournament. But you're right, this isn't where you can just unleash the driver and hit 310-yard drives and use a wedge in. In fact, I'm kind of hoping, when we'll get a chance to talk to Dustin Johnson tomorrow, I'm kind of hoping that maybe he'll take us up on the challenge to not put a driver in his bag all week and see if he can win that way.
Why not?
With a little bit more control. He doesn't have to blow the ball. He might, even if he had the driver in his bag, he might use it 3 times during the course of a round, and that's if the wind was blowing in a certain direction. I think if you're good enough, you can win with whatever's in your bag. And Dustin Johnson is good enough with the other clubs. I think it's a great challenge.
Well, that's how Dustin was able to win the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
So,
and that's on a big, beefy golf course. And we've seen Tiger Woods. He didn't take the driver out of his bag, but he never took the head cover off when he won at Hoylake in 2006. So there are some examples there of, yes, it can be done. And sometimes it's actually to your advantage because you take that driver risk out of play.
All right. Time to introduce our next analyst. And he is with ProGolfWeekly.com. He's their lead writer. And ProGolfWeekly.com is a weekly digital magazine that covers pro golf around the world. Joel Cook. And Joel was with us, of course, on Saturday and Sunday for our special edition Masters shows. So, Joel, what did you think about Patrick Reed winning the Masters?
I was impressed as hell. So I honestly didn't think he was going to do it, just being in that position for the first time. I know, all these guys fail a few times on the big stage before they break through, but Reed's had this tendency lately to throw out like one big round every week, and I didn't think he was going to do it for 4 straight, but he did. He was solid the whole time. Was then awesome to see what would happen. To see him hit that tree on the 18th hole. That was just so exciting at the end. Rory disappointed me a bit, but Reed, I know Reed's not the most popular champion they've ever had, so I guess it's 2 years in a row of that. But I think we knew earlier in the year, we knew that he had this game in him, and that eventually he was gonna win again. I didn't see that coming at the Masters of all places, but he did have the appearance of someone who was going to be going to win again soon.
Yeah, it is crazy, Jeff, that if you look at it, the one trend that continues to happen is we're getting young major winners and we're getting first-time major winners. So does that mean that the next two will be Ricky Fowler and Jon Rahm?
Certainly, it's possible. We're at a point right now where all 4 major trophies are in the hands of Americans under the age of 28. Patrick Reed rounded that one out. He's 27. Brooks Koepka is about 3 months older. And then you have the 24-year-olds in Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. So this is a great rise. We talked about the young guns for a long time, and some came up faster than others. Patrick Reed and Brooks Koepka were a little bit on a slightly slower path, but the youth is ruling right now, and right now it's American youth. Ricky Fowler has about 2 more majors before he turns 30, so he's got to. We always say he's got to start catching up to these other guys. And then Jon Rahm, I was impressed with how he played at Augusta. Second time around, we know that Augusta can be frustrating, and Jon Rahm can be frustrated, but he handled it pretty well this week.
Yeah, and look, I think this was also the best that we've seen Ricky play in a major in a final round, Joel.
Yeah.
He was really, I mean, look, Patrick Reed, that's what it took. And sometimes you get this. I mean, Ricky is kind of, and we've heard the comparisons before. He's kind of in the Phil Mickelson stage of his career where he's been doing really well in majors over the last few years, but he can't, whether it's close or whether get a break because guys are just playing better than him that week. But Ricky just keeps doing this, just like Phil realized early in his career, and eventually he's going to get his major and several majors. And this has got to be good for Ricky, especially to be able to do it on a Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's one thing we were talking about in the weekend podcast. I mean, I don't know if it took Fowler in the competition this week, but he's just been so terrible on Sundays and regular events, let alone some of these higher pressure ones. I remember he had that year, I believe, of 2014, where he was in the contention all four majors, and then the next year he was just awful at them all. There's something kind of going in his head there, but he's turning back in the right direction. I was impressed, very impressed, that he didn't lay back any near the end. He was like the second or third to last player who still had a chance to catch Reed, and I think this is going to be good for him. I'm sure he's going to be disappointed falling just short again, but it feels like it's been a little bit since he's been really in this kind of contention at this big of an event again. And he sounds confident. I believe him. I think he's going to win something soon.
Yeah, and Jeff, and I've mentioned this before with Ricky, and I know he gets some backlash from the media and all that kind of stuff for not winning a major, or turning the corner. And remember, after he won the Hero, everybody was saying it again, this is going to be Ricky's year. And so far it hasn't been Ricky's year. But, when I see Ricky play, and I think we can tell a lot of times in teams, especially individual players, when they're uncomfortable in a stressful situation, in a pressure situation, and we go, well, you see, he's just, he's choking again. It's not working, whatever. He's not clutch. I have never seen that in Ricky. I don't think it's a pressure thing with Ricky. I think it could be a cycle. I think it could be a bad game plan, or he's not doing certain other things appropriately. But I don't think it's a pressure thing. I don't look at Ricky and go, oh, yeah, he can't handle the pressure.
What I have seen on occasion with Ricky is that if things don't go well early in that Sunday round, it gets to him, and then he has a hard time kind of getting the car out of gear. We saw that in Phoenix a couple of years ago, where just putts wouldn't fall, maybe catches a bad break, hit shot comes up on the wrong side of a slope, and you can just see the air come out of his sails a little bit. So there is that. However, the lasting image I have of Ricky is winning the Players' Championship a few years ago, coming from all the way back and just making birdie after birdie with an eagle thrown in there at 16, going through the playoff, birdieing 17 again, and then birdieing 17 again. So he definitely has the grit. It might be just one of those things where if there's a critical point where you could go either way, you've got to be able to not be frustrated. And it's exactly what Patrick Reed did on Sunday. He had a few bogeys early, and immediately at that next hole, he got it back with a birdie. That was really impressive. And if we can start seeing that with Ricky, yeah, he's not going to get just one major. He'll do the Mickelson thing, and he'll start picking up a few.
And if you had to guess, Joel, which way you think what this is going to do to Patrick Reed, is he going to is it going to be a Danny Willett, let's just say, and I'm just talking results wise, or just not taking off the way we thought, or do you think this would be a defining moment for him, and you could see him being Player of the Year when this is all said and done? Do you just see this as he was hot this week, he's a top 25 player, I don't ever think he's going to be a top 10 player, and that's just the way I think it's going to be?
I mean, there have been, for a few years there, he looked like he was on the verge of becoming that player. I mean, he was such a standout in college, and he had a lot of wins early on. He just wasn't getting them done in majors. And I just see too much talent for him to see him. And not to say that Danny Will's not talented. I know there's some injury issues there.
Sure,
and,
sure.
His career's not done either. But I mean, I think he's someone who can win again. I don't think he's going to have a enormous trophy case full of these things, but I think he's going to be legitimately good player for quite a while. He'll be in contention in quite a few of these. Maybe something comparable to maybe like what Zach Johnson's done. And he's got a few majors and a few other times where he was like right there till the end. Although Reed's much better hitter than him, but
yeah. Well, if it's going to happen,
that's just the first comparison I could think of.
Yeah, if it's going to happen, if he's going to turn into a top 10 player or one of the top players in the game, you would think that it would happen real soon after what happened this past week. Jeff, what's next? As far as majors, we got Shinnecock Hills at the U.S. Open, Carnoustie at the Open Championship, and where's the PGA Championship this year?
It's at Bellerive in St. Louis. And Bellerive has kind of been off the PGA Championship rotation a little bit. I want to say the last time it was used might have been in the 1990s. So obviously, the game has changed a lot since then. Now, we did have a couple of bigger events at Bellerive, including what was supposed to be a World Golf Championships event in September of 2011. And that event was canceled when the Twin Towers were hit. So that was really kind of our last chance to see Bellerive in that kind of arena. But it is a classic golf course and tends to crown worthy champions. But that's kind of the unknown. We know Carnoustie is going to be a monster. It always has been. We all remember Jean Van de Velde from 1999. Shinnecock Hills is a real challenge. It's a links type golf course out there at the far tip of Long Island, and we know what the wind can do at Shinnecock Hills based on the way those putts were not stopping in 2004. So two really challenging majors next.
Well, and by the way, what did you think about? I know how disappointed Joel is about his top pick Rory not closing the deal on Sunday, but that had to be a tough one for Rory because Patrick Reed, logically, look, nobody's ever 4 rounds in the 60s. It had never been done before. You logically had to believe Patrick Reed was going to kind of go in even, +1, -1. That was the logical assumption, and it happened. So really, Rory just had to have a good day, and he had a bad day. That's got to really be disappointing. And what kind of reaction has he received generally from the media, or maybe even some European Tour fans who wanted to finally see Rory get one again?
Well, I think that's the question. Is he was right there, and what happened after that? And I think it really goes back to number 2. He had a 4-foot eagle putt.
Yep.
At number 2.
Yep.
That would have wiped out Patrick Reed's lead because Reed bogeyed number 1. And I've talked about it with a few people here, is if he had made that eagle putt, how would the dynamic have changed? Because instead of Patrick Reed being able to take a sigh of relief and Rory with a little bit of frustration, it would have been game on, and it would have been the opening match of the Ryder Cup all over again. Could it have been that way? Yeah, it very well might have.
Yeah, Rory missed another short one on 4 also. Just between those two, he just seemed deflated because he didn't get anything going after those 2 short misses.
I mean, isn't it surprising, though, because you would think that when you miss shots like that in this situation, that the first thing that you think about is pressure. And do you think that's what happened, Joel, that the pressure got to him?
Maybe a little bit. He just seemed kind of deflated later. I mean, he's just one of those guys who all of a sudden can just go on this huge birdie binge, like what we saw from Paul Casey or someone like that down the stretch, and he just didn't have. I mean, he almost looked like he had just kind of given up early on, to decide, hey, I guess I just don't have it today. There was just so little fire from him, considering what the situation was for him to get that Masters and then finally have all the majors.
Yeah, it's. I think this is going to be tough for Rory to do. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I just got a feeling that he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to win that fourth major. And I don't know. This is going to be tough.
Well, and Rory's very much a momentum guy too. When the 4 majors that he has won, he has all won from running in the front.
Yep.
And running away in a couple of cases. Congressional at the U.S. Open, Kiowa at the PGA Championship. Now he did get through a dogfight at Valhalla at the 2014 PGA, but that's not typically the way he's gone. Even when he's won a regular PGA Tour event, he shoots 62 at Quail Hollow, or he shoots 64 at Bay Hill. When everything falls into place, he may be the most unstoppable guy out there. But if it's not all falling into place and he has to kind of figure out something, then it's even money or worse.
Yeah, and it's funny, the announcer, when he missed that eagle on 2, he was like, "Oh, that's okay." He was able to make up 1 stroke, and I was like, "No, that's not okay. You can't miss that in that situation. That is a bad birdie any way you think about it." And yeah, he never recovered really from that, because Patrick Reed didn't really, like you said, it would have been a lot harder for him to deal with the pressure, especially a playing mate, and to do it early in the round, as opposed to the fact that once that never happened, it really he had a little breathing room for an hour or so, and that definitely had to help him out, because he really didn't jumpstart his own round a little bit until later in the day, when he started missing and making. But at least the making in that situation, when he still had a little bit of breathing room, it felt really big. And it felt like that he, every time he took that additional stroke lead, that's huge. And not having to deal with a playing companion that was on you, and that other person is just, you'd have to watch the leaderboard, and that's in order to know what was going on. That had to help him. And
yeah, well, and I think too that, remember that Patrick Reed rammed home a fairly lengthy putt. I want to say it was on 3, and it wasn't. It might not have been for a birdie, but that was I think a big save for Patrick Reed as well.
Yes,
because I'm not going away.
Yes, yeah, that's that sloped hole. The one where that one was just off the green. Yeah, that was a big putt. All right, so there you go. Next major U.S. Open. Let me ask you, Joel, right now. Give me one player. Who would you go with today? U.S. Open.
U.S. Open.
Do they water the green?
I think I've learned my lesson about betting against Spieth at majors right now. Either him. I had been thinking Tommy Fleetwood, but I can't pick against Spieth. If I had to pick one right now, that's where I'd go.
Spieth, okay, all right. Jeff, who would you go with right now for the U.S. Open?
Right now, I think it's got to be somebody that plays well in the wind. And right now, you look at the top guys on the list, and there aren't a lot of great wind players. I might go with a Justin Rose. I think he's got some grit to. He's already won a U.S. Open. He won at Marion in 2013, so maybe something like that. And again, I've said it, I don't know how many times in the last 3 or 4 weeks, Justin Thomas is shown to be very, very adaptable and in contention more often than not, in whether it's a big event or a small event. So those are the 2 names I would look at. Yeah,
Justin Thomas had that he had that record day last year at that phony U.S. Open, right?
The U.S. Open would play like a PGA champion.
Yeah. What was that? What did he shoot that day, the third round? 63, okay.
63,
yeah, that'll never happen again, unless they go back to that course. Okay, so let's get to this week's event, the RBC Heritage at Harbor Town. I've got the first pick this week. And by the way, where's Boo Weekley? How come we haven't heard about him? He's a 2-time champ, Joel. Do we know what's going on with Boo Weekley?
I spent considerable time looking him up on Google this afternoon. I think he has fallen off the earth completely because I cannot find anything.
Why don't you type Boo Weekley fishing?
Yeah, I saw some hunting and fishing stuff, but I didn't see any talk of him playing. He played most of last season he was pretty irrelevant, and all of a sudden exploded at the Travelers and was relevant again for a week. I don't know what happened to him.
Jeff, do you know?
More insight than I do.
You have any idea,
He's
Jeff?
just he's gone through just a spate of injuries.
Okay.
Through the last 3 or 4 years, it seems to be one thing after another. He hasn't teed it up anywhere since the Canadian Open last August, and so you have to think that injuries are definitely a part of it. But at his age, and he's never said that he's going to be a lifer in professional golf, and he's certainly made enough money just from this tournament alone.
Yep.
But he can retire. He can go fishing anytime he wants, and
probably what he's doing now.
I think that he would like to. He'd like to tee it up, particularly a place like Harbour Town. But if he doesn't show for a good long time, it's not going to bother him.
All right. Well, my first pick won't be any surprise. And I mentioned when Brady was going over some of the players before, he was one of my top picks this week. And I'm going to go ahead and not take one of the top 3 players this week. And I'm going to go with one of the top 5, though, and that is Webb Simpson at 25-1. 11th here last year, 4 top 15s and 8 attempts at this golf course, including the runner-up in 2013. And he had a very good Sunday. So I'll take Webb Simpson at 25-1. Joel, who's going to go and be your first pick?
Well, the odds on this guy are a little bit higher than what I normally do with a first-round pick. But really, if Cam Smith was at 14-1 instead of 28-1, would anyone really even bat an eye at it right now? I know he's not the straightest off the tee, which is kind of important there, but he's coming off back-to-back top 5 finishes. His short game has just been incredible. He can score, and he's played well at this course before. He had top T15 once. It's the way he's playing. 28-1 odds seems fantastic.
What do you think about him on this golf course, Jeff? Because he's playing tremendous. 66 on Sunday. Also a solid match play. So we've talked a lot about him in the past 6 to 8 months, and he's coming off the biggest event of his career, even though he didn't win it here in the U.S. So what about his game on this course?
If he can keep it from veering into the trees, his shot-making ability has certainly been something to be impressed with. And maybe this is his time of year, too, because it was like right after the Masters, a couple weeks after the Masters last year, that he got his first PGA Tour win, teaming with Jonas Blix to win the Zurich Classic in New Orleans. But he's got 11 top 20s in his last 14 starts. He does have some experience here. It's been a couple of years, but boy, is he playing really well right now.
All right, so 2 off the board, and the top 3 are still up there, Jeff. So this is a week that not bad to be the third guy picking, because the top 3 are still up there if you want to take one of them.
But you know what? Harbour Town, with certain exceptions, and Brady talked about Brian Koprak, being in one of those where he's a power hitter that just leaves his driver alone and knows how to work the ball around the golf course. But it's the shot makers, it's the ball strikers that win here. Matt Kuchar is a ball striker. Jim Furyk is a ball striker. Luke Donald, even though he's not won here, is a ball striker. So I'm going to go with a ball striker and a guy that I think has really elevated his game in the last 12 months. And it doesn't hurt that he lives not too far from Hilton Head Island. That's Brian Harman, who is he's a short hitter, but he's among the straightest hitters, and he's been really putting well.
All right, Brian Harman, 33-1, 2 top 10s and 8 appearances, including 2 in his last 4, and he was 9th last year. I'm going to go ahead and take somebody that I figured I was going to take him or Joel was going to take him, because we both take him, both like him and have mentioned him enough, and that is Emiliano Grillo. So I'm going to take Grillo at 40-1. He's coming off that really solid third-place finish at Houston, and I hadn't touched him as much as I did a couple of years ago when he was hot, because he really hasn't been hot until the last month or so. And I don't care about he's playing here for the first time, because Wes Bryant won here last year playing for the first time. So I'll take Grillo at 40-1, Joel.
Yeah, he's someone I've been looking at a lot, or I've mentioned a lot on here recently. It's really impressive. T3 his last time out. he's got a good game for this one.
Okay. Who do you got? Who do
yeah,
you like?
I'm gonna stay in this range also. Even though Kuchar's kind of tempting, I'm a little just late on him after taking him last week. But, actually, I'm gonna take a different guy who let me down last week. Patrick Cantlay. He was T3 here last year. It was shocking to see him finally miss the cut, but hey, maybe it'll even be good for him now that he knows that he can do that. And he was fantastic last year, 4 rounds of 70 or better. I hope maybe those 2 extra days will give him some time to really work on what hurt him at Augusta.
Yeah, I'm actually, tell you the truth, surprised that in this field he's 35-1. With his game, third last year, as you mentioned, I would have thought that he would actually be maybe right where Cameron Smith is, to tell you the truth. So, what about you, Jeff? You surprised that Cantlay isn't a little bit higher as far as the odds?
Yeah, a little bit, especially being that this was kind of his breakout moment, his breakout tournament last year, where he put himself thoroughly in the Sunday mix and was in contention almost right up until the end. So, and he's only shown to be consistent since then. So, yeah, it's a pretty good play at 33-1.
Yeah. All right. What are you going to go with there, Jeff? You've got Harman as your top pick.
Well, I'm going to take a guy that's a lot like Brian Harman. Not the longest hitter, but a great putter and a guy that knows the area and actually was a playoff runner-up to Jim Furyk here a couple of years ago, and that's Kevin Kisner. I think that he is a guy that knows how to play this course, has played it before in his youth days. By the way, Wes Bryan, we say that last year was his first year playing Harbour Town. It was his first year playing a PGA Tour event at Harbour Town, but because he's a South Carolina native, he's played this course many, many times.
Okay.
So there was a certain familiarity there.
All right, there you go. Definitely useful information. Okay, so Harman and Kisner are your top 2 picks. I'm going to go ahead. I've got Simpson and Griot, 1 and 2. I'm going to take Adam Hadwin as my third choice. And I'm a little bit concerned with the way he's trending right now, but the good news is he's got 5 straight top 25. So if you're going to trend in the opposite direction, 5 straight top 25s is the way to go. I actually like the fact that he's trending well on this golf course. He's been better here each time out. 7 under par last year when he finished 22nd, and he's also a pretty straight guy, and I don't mean sexually. And he's also, well, he could be. But the thing is with Hadwin, and we've seen this before, Joel, is when he gets in his zone, for a month or so, then that's the time to take him. The question is, as he gets older, he's got the game where he can start getting out of those kind of hot streaks, cold streaks, because that's an average tour player. And I think Adam Hadwin's better than an average tour player. And I think sooner or later he's going to start having a lot more consistent top 25s over his career.
Yeah, I agree. Hadwin definitely was in my pick on my next one if you hadn't taken him there.
Okay.
He is notoriously streaky, and he's gone 6th, 9th, 12th, 17th, 24th. I mean, yeah, that's not the right direction, but those are still all within the top 25. And even at the Masters, he was in contention early. He had that really bad second round, but then he still played the weekend under par. I mean, he's very accurate and has the tremendous touch around the greens. He's definitely a fit for this course. Absolutely.
All right, Joel, you're next. You have Smith and Cantlay. Who's your third pick?
Okay, I'm going to go with someone who I think of a lot when I hear the word shot maker, and he played this really well for 54 holes last year, and that's Jason Duffner at 50-1. I just think he's got an excellent fit for this course. He hasn't been really there the last month, but I think he was looking good before that. He's coming back around. I really like those odds there, and I think he'll probably learn from. He started off 68, 67, 65 last year, so he has some comfort here. I don't know what happened. He blew up on Sunday, but he's going to have another tour win for a third consecutive year. This is a place I really like him.
So he has moved down. You're saying he's down to 50-1 now?
I think he's 60 to 1.
60 to 1. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought you said 50. Okay, so Duffner at 60 to 1 as Joel ventures in to the long shots. All right, Jeff, are you going to venture into the long shots?
Not yet. There's actually a couple names that are non-long shots that I'm looking at. I'm going to take the one with the better odds, and this is another guy who, like Cantley, kind of introduced himself to everybody last year, and then went on and continued to play well the rest of the season. And that's Ollie Schneiderjan, who held the lead for a brief period of time last year, and I think is really starting to find his way on this tour. And this is a familiar area to him as well. He's not a South Carolina guy, but he's a Georgia Tech guy, former NCAA champion. We've seen him in contention at Tampa before. So at 33 to 1, Ollie Schneiderjan.
All right, so you've got 33 to 1 shots. See if that ever happens again, Jeff. We'll see if that works out for you.
Can they combine to go 33 under? That's my question.
All right. So there you go. That's your and that means that we only have one player chosen as far as a long shot, but now we go into our official long shots. Players 50 to 1 or over. It's the only players that we can touch right now. And I'm going to go ahead and take Francesco Molinari as my official long shot at 50 to 1. He had a solid 20th place finish last week. And another player like Hadwin that has gotten better each time he's played here, including the last couple of years, 7 under par last year, finishing 22nd. So if he can improve upon that, that can put him in contention. And I know Molinari's we know he played a lot better at this time last year, so maybe he can kind of get going now. It worked out for me when I took a player that came from the European Tour recently when I grabbed Brendan Grace a couple of years ago here. So hopefully Molinari can do that for me as well. Joel, who's going to go ahead and be your official long shot?
Well, I know typically this is a course where we see a lot of the similar players year after year getting into the mix. It's not necessarily all that friendly to the first timers, but there's a debut here I'm just going to go with anyway, and that's Beau Hossler. I mean, he just looked so fantastic at Houston. I mean, he only had 2 bogeys for the entire week. He ranked 2nd in strokes gained off the tee, 4th in strokes gained putting, 3rd in scrambling. He had one round where he was 18th for 18 in greens and regulation. I mean, he was just one unlikely birdie putt on the 72nd hole by Ian Poulter from being at the Masters last week. I think we knew that he was going to break out at some point. I'm gonna ride him for a second week. I think if he can play the game he played in Houston, he's an excellent fit here.
All right, we'll see how his game is after what happened at Houston and had a week off. So it's kind of hard to go 2-1 when you're a young kid, but Hossler, maybe the confidence, like you said, maybe the game is there once more this week to go out and play well. All right, Jeff. So, and by the way, he would follow Wes Bryant's footsteps as playing here for the first time. Jeff, who's your official long shot?
Well, I'm gonna stay semi-local, and this is a guy that has played extremely well at this golf course, and I already had this hunch to begin with, and then Brady kind of confirmed it. William McGirt is a really strong player at Harbour Town. 3 top 10s since 2014. His scoring average in the last 4 editions of the tournament is 69.4. And he played well not all that long ago at Tampa, which is a similar course. So William McGirt at 75 to 1.
All right, William McGirt it is. 75 to 1 is the highest of the 3 long shots right here. And again, as Brady had mentioned, he's got 3 top 10s in his last 4 at Harbour Town. All right, my first alternate, I'm going to go ahead with Tyrrell Hatton at 33 to 1. Tyrrell played here last year, and he finished 29th. He was 44th last week at the Masters. He is my number 1 alternate. Joel, who's your number 1 alternate?
I sort of almost want to say Kuchar again, but I'll just venture into that same range. I got the second place guy in Houston. Let's just take the champion too. Ian Poulter kind of looked really boring. He didn't have a great week at the Masters, but
wow.
He's accurate, and he you think he fits the course decently.
Yeah, he does. That's why it's surprising he doesn't have a top 10 yet, but he was 11th last year. So, all right. And again, remember, you can take any player here you want under the 50-1 number, even if the player has already been taken. Jeff, who's your first alternate? You've got Harman, Kisner, and Snyderjans.
Yeah, really briefly, Ian Poulter was in the mix at the end of Saturday. Just had the wheels come off on the back nine, but he was in contention on the front nine on Sunday. He does play this course very well. I'm going to kind of stay with the same thread here. Younger players that have a little bit of experience and are shot makers, and we've started to see Bryson DeChambeau start to show up on some of these leaderboards. Obviously, he was the guy that got blitzed by Rory at Bay Hill, but he's starting to play really well. He's got some experience here. In fact, his first professional start was at Harbour Town a couple of years ago, and he finished top 10 then.
Yeah, he finished fourth, and he was somebody that I actually, if I did not take Tyrrell Hatton, I would have gone with DeChambeau. So I definitely like DeChambeau as well. But just like we mentioned with the Adam Hadwins of the world, the consistency factor, that's the thing that we got to see whether he has. He finished 38th last week and had that runner-up at Bay Hill to Rory. All right, now it's our final pick, and that's alternate 2 long shots. And Molinari is my official long shot. I'll go with a player that I've taken quite a bit over the last several months, and that is Zach Johnson. So I'll go back to Zach as an alternate long shot at 50-1. And as we talked earlier with Brady, with Zach, he's got a runner-up here in 2012. And he played pretty well at the Masters for a while. So I'll go back to Zach. Joel, who's your alternate long shot in case anything happens to Bo Hostler?
Well, since I took someone who is making their debut, it makes sense. My next one was someone who's experienced here. But I'm going to take another debutant here. Xander Schauffele, who I've taken a decent amount on here. Maybe I just catch him at the right time, but he seems like just such a phenomenal shot maker to me. And every time I hear that this is a course for shot makers, he's someone that really comes out to me as someone who could do well there. He wasn't great at the Masters, but he was coming off 3 consecutive top 18 before that.
Yeah, Schauffele's he's a good player, and Jeff, it's sort of like Cantlay. I think Joel's got a couple of good young players in Schauffele and Cantlay that I think are being undervalued.
I think so. Now, Schauffele may not have as much experience. He's a California guy, grew up playing on different types of golf courses, didn't really play a lot of the AJGA national type events, so maybe not as accustomed to courses in the South. And Cantlay might be a little bit of that as well. He's got 2 California guys, while I've gone with just a load of guys based in the South. So maybe I do think there's a little home flavor that goes with Harbour.
All right, who's your alternate long shot for Willie McGirt?
It's the horse for the course. I've taken him so many times and been disappointed just because he's got this run of finishing second at Harbour Town, and he's an alternate, and so it wouldn't necessarily officially count unless, William McGirt sprains his ankle. But I'm going to put Luke Donald in that last slot. He's got 7 top 3s in the last 9 years, and
crazy.
He's number 2 on the all-time money list here, even though he hasn't won.
Yeah, he's a definite fantasy choice, no question about that. 5 runner-ups his last 9 years on this golf course. That's amazing.
And 2 other thirds also.
Just hasn't been able to win. So very good, again, very good fantasy player here, but you do wonder. Because look, some people initially, without seeing his past performances, would be like, what on earth is Luke Donald doing 50-1? He hasn't done anything. But this is the golf course to take Luke Donald. Because this is the only golf course he's had any sort of success over the past several years. And it is amazing. He's another one of these players that when you look back and you go, wow, this guy was number 1. So it seems like yesterday, Luke Donald was on top of the world. What basically happened to Luke?
He's number 197 now, I believe.
What do you think happened to Luke, Joel?
I'm not sure. I was wondering if Donald was going to go, because it was kind of like, I remember when last week, none of us took Spieth, and then, afterwards we're going, well, how come no one took him at this course? I was kind of wondering if the same thing was going to happen with Donald, where it's like, well, why wouldn't anyone take him at this course? I mean, after finishing second last year, he missed his next 8 cuts and then had T49. He's only made 3 cuts this year. He's just been so bad. It's just
except here.
It's been mostly. I mean, I think his accuracy off the tees hasn't been there as much as in the past. He's just doesn't look good. I mean, it's hard to argue with his past at this event. He just makes him so intriguing at 50-1. But yeah, he's been so bad lately.
Well, that's the thing, Jeff. If Luke Donald can't be accurate off the tee, he's done.
You're absolutely right. And that's what made him number one, is that he was never going to overpower a golf course, but you were going to have to beat him by making shots like he did when he was at the height of his powers. And that's the only way he could do that. And his putting was on, and he was in a good frame of mind. But with players like that, guys that kind of have to chase distance or understand that they're going to constantly 30 yards behind some of their playing partners off the tee, you've got to have just brilliant consistency. And for a lot of guys, that you've got a great window, but when that window starts to close, sometimes it's hard to get it back. Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit with Luke last year too. He came in here not playing well at all, and yet what does he do? Goes out and almost wins again.
Sure.
And Wes Bryan made 4 consecutive birdies on the front 9 and a couple more on the back 9, and Luke Donald could not make a birdie in the last half dozen holes. There was your difference.
All right. There's a lot of other intriguing players that we did not take yet. Charlie Hoffman could be interesting. He's coming off another solid Masters at 40-1. Let's see. Bud Cauley at 55-1. He's been playing pretty well recently. 9th year last year. Let's see. Russell Knox likes the golf course. He's got 4 top 20s and 4 trips here. He's 28 under par over his career here, Jeff.
And another one that kind of fits that bill. He's not going to overpower you off the tee, but his shot making is very good. And remember, that 2-year stretch or whatever, where he had 2 or 3 wins and a lot of top finishes.
Oh yeah.
If he can come back to that, he can definitely do it here. But he's fallen off a little bit. Now he's got to figure out how to get it back, because he can't make up for it with power or Jordan Spieth. Classic Jordan Spieth type putting.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that Matthew Fitzpatrick hasn't played well here before. You would think this would fit him, but he's 80-1. He's missed the last 2 cuts here, and overall, this is just one of those really young top players that still plays well over in Europe, but he hasn't been able to translate that over the U.S. yet. But he's still very young. And yeah, I still am intrigued a little bit with Rory Sabatini at 90-1. And so he's somebody that I might throw a buck on. Let's see. And then maybe even Sam Saunders. Maybe this is not a bad week to throw a buck on Saunders at 150-1. He was 11th here last year. And he might be a player that could fit this, the past champions on this golf course.
Well, it might be a full circle thing if Sam Saunders was to win. As we talked about with Brady, this is the 50th anniversary of the Heritage Classic. And the very first Heritage Classic winner in 1969 on a brand spanking new, they were putting pine straw down in the morning, Harbor Town Golf Links, was Arnold Palmer.
Interesting.
So grandfather to grandson.
Throw a buck on him. 150-1. Why not? The veterans, we mentioned Davis Love. He's a 5-time champ. He's 400-1. Carl Pedersen's game has really fallen off. He's the 2012 champ at 750-1. Let's see. Jim Furyk, we talked about him. He's 66-1. He's a 2-time champ. And he won most recently in 2015. This is a perfect golf course for Jim Furyk, so maybe Jim can play well this week. It wouldn't be surprising him all. We would talk about Luke Donald, so why can't Jim Furyk have a good week, Joel?
Yeah, Furyk had a T7 recently, almost saves at the Valspar. So he hasn't been so down quite a bit, not quite at Donald's level, but he's shown some signs of life lately, and he's actually pulled through here twice before. So definitely worth considering. And speaking of past winners of this event, I'm seeing a little bit of a discrepancy. Brian Gay is showing up on PGA Tour's list of players who are here, but I don't see him anywhere on the odds. Does anyone know where he is this week?
Yeah,
I know that he's on property because I talked to him and his wife yesterday. So
when he won, he didn't just win. He just smacked the field when he won, and he was starting to show signs of life again earlier this year. I'm not sure why he's not showing up on the odds list, but yeah, he's someone to definitely look at too.
Yeah, Brian Gay and Brandt Snedeker. Snedeker, the 2011 champ, is like around 55 to 1. So those are a couple of guys that we didn't mention that are former champs. Snedeker just isn't playing well enough, but you can understand why this would be a good golf course for Brandt. So Charles Schwartzel's another guy that's really playing awful. He's 90 to 1, if you can believe it, in a field like this, that Charles Schwartzel is 90 to 1.
Oh, well, I just assumed he wasn't in the field. I didn't even realize he was in. Wow, those are really terrible odds.
Yep. So Steve Stricker's playing here. This is a good golf course for him.
Actually, he's withdrawn.
Oh, he has. Okay. Well, he would have been he hadn't played here since 98 anyway. So
yeah, that was an odd situation because he was like a last-minute commit, hadn't played here in 20 years, hadn't played all that well here when he did play, and then within a couple of days, he withdrew.
Kevin Chappell, this is a good golf course for him. He did finish 9th when he last played here a couple of years ago. He's 50 to 1. And by the way, two players at 300 to 1 are very intriguing. First of all, you have got John Senden returning. Now, this hasn't been a good golf course for John Senden, but as far as you know, Jeff, how is Jeff Senden doing?
Well, John Senden has stepped away for the better part of a year because his son was diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Mm-hmm.
And now he is, and he stepped completely away. Didn't start in Australia, didn't start on the lower tours, just took time off to be with his son. And now he's started to come back. He had a start, I think it was actually on the web.com tour, a couple weeks ago, at the Chitimacha, Louisiana Open on the web.com tour. So he's just kind of working his way back in. He's able to play here because even though he doesn't have a great record at the RBC Heritage, he did win it once. So he's going to come back to a place that he feels comfortable.
All right, and also Doc Redman is 300 to 1. Doc Redman. What do we know about Doc Redman? This is a kid who we started to learn a little bit about last week.
That's right, and he was in the Masters field because he is the reigning U.S. amateur champion, coming from 2 holes down with 2 to play in the final at Riviera against Doug Gim. Won number 17 at Riviera, beat Gim on that just really, really tough 18th hole at Riviera, and then I think that just took the wind out of Gim's sails because Redmond then won a 3rd consecutive hole in sudden death to walk away with the title. But he's a very talented player, and not only is he in the field as the U.S. amateur champion, he might have gotten an invitation anyway because he's another Carolina native. He's a sophomore at Clemson, rather familiar with the courses in this area, and so just another great draw. And I guess the scheduling worked out. And not only does he get to play the Masters, but he gets to drive down the highway and tee it up in another PGA Tour event.
All right, and by the way, defending champ Wes Bryan is 100 to 1. Okay, so what do you got going on, Joel, over at Pro Golf Weekly, post-Masters week?
Well, we still have some of our coverage from that. My top 15 power rankings for this course should be up there shortly. I also have my storylines are up for the week where I get in a little bit deeper on some of these stories. What Paul Casey's done the report, the Luke Donald situation. there's a number of good articles over at Pro Golf Weekly right now. Definitely a good time to check. We you definitely have a lot on there of especially people still looking for Masters reviews and all that.
All right. Well, next up, as we mentioned, as far as majors, will probably be another month before we start going over the futures for the U.S. Open. But anyway, there's a lot of great golf ahead of us. Joel, appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. That's Joel Cook. And so next week, what do we have next week? We've got the Texas Open, right? We got the Texas Open.
Texas Open as we leave the coast and head back to Texas and that part of the country, and the Zurich Classic, the 2-man event is after that. So.
Boo. I don't like that. Yeah, not into that. I knew that they would keep doing it. I know that. Well, we'll try it out. So yeah, I know you're gonna keep doing it. I mean, because you have enough people that'll like it, and that's all. They just want to be different. But
that's the thing. It's a change of pace. There are 40 whatever, individual stroke play events on the PGA Tour. We can't have a Ryder Cup every week. So this is something to put New Orleans a little different than the others. Some will like it, some will not. But I as a spectator, and I know it's a little bit more difficult to handicap because you're dealing with two players, and how are they both performing? But as a spectator, it was interesting, and we did have a really good playoff there with Cameron Smith and Jonas Blix beating out Kevin Kisner and Scott Brown. And Kisner, if you remember, made that great chip in to send it to a playoff.
All right. By the way, there's also an event in Spain this week where two of Spain's best, John Rahm and Rafa Cabrera Bello, will be playing. So that's the Open de España. So that's I'm sure going to be on the Golf Channel.
National Open, the 91st edition, goes back to 1912.
All right. Okay, so Jeff, what's ahead on around the tours that's available on our website at primesportsnetwork.com? One of the big stories this week is something that is taking place over on the Champions Tour, correct?
Yeah. Once we get past kind of the Masters wrap up and some of those things there was an announcement from the Champions Tour, the PGA Tour Champions, yesterday that they are changing the playoff format and doing something that I have said that the FedEx Cup needs to do, and that's get rid of the reset. Do not reset the points going into the final event. What that did last year was it took away a huge lead by Bernhard Langer in a dominant season, and Bernhard Langer had a bad week. Kevin Sutherland had a good week. Kevin Sutherland won for the first time all year and wound up with the Charles Schwab Cup because he was close enough in the reset to beat Bernhard Langer. They're wiping that out. They're just going to make it like the other playoff events. It's double points, and if you've got a big league built up because you've had a dominant season, we're going to crown you anyway. And that's the way it should have been. I still feel bad for Bernhard Langer after last year.
Yeah, he had one of the better years ever on the Champions Tour and didn't win at all. Okay, so Jeff, we'll talk to you next week when we talk Texas Open golf, and of course you'll have your early look, your first look at PGTour.com on Friday. So Friday afternoon, check out PGTour.com for Jeff Shane's first look report on the Texas Open, and then of course we'll wrap up any of the big stories from this week at Harbor Town, and if anything crazy, good, dramatic happens over the weekend, we can always summon Jeff and get a live report on what's going on there, since Jeff will be at Harbor Town for the entire event. So enjoy yourself this week, Jeff, and we'll talk to you next week.
It's always fun to be back out on the course.
Absolutely. So it's not Augusta, but nothing wrong at all with Harbor Town. All right, so for Joel Cook, for Brady Cannon, I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in to this week's event, this week's show, the Prime Sports Golf. We also, of course, want to thank Brady Cannon regarding his Covers.com affiliation, being one of their handicappers and their golf handicapper, to be precise. And as we have mentioned several times on this show, we want to remind you can get 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. We'll talk to you again. Our next show on the network officially right now is scheduled for tomorrow. We've got our NHL playoff preview show at 1:30 Eastern Time. On Friday, we've got our NBA playoff preview show at 1 o'clock. And then we've got a bunch of other shows, including NASCAR, NFL draft, and horse racing and more. So we'll see you again next week right here on Prime Sports Golf on the Prime Sports Radio Network.